Hello. Today we are going to look at a slightly longer poem. We already know that if a poem has 4 lines with equal number of characters, most commonly 5 or 7, it's called a 绝句, which is a very popular format of ancient Chinese poetry. Now, if we extend it to 8 lines, then we have another mainstream format. We call it 律诗. 律诗 is extremely important and arguably the pinnacle of the ancient Chinese poetry because it is long enough to contain a wider range of messages, but at the same time concise enough to keep the subtlety typically found in poems. And it places strict rules on the rhythm and intonation of the characters, so maximizes the musical beauty of the poem as well. For example, we know Du Fu is often regarded the best poet China has ever produced. In his later years, pretty much all of his effort was on this 律诗, many of which were widely seen as his best works. Today we're going to learn a poem by Bai Juyi, who was born 60 years after Du Fu and 2 years after Du Fu died. Like Li Bai and Du Fu, Bai Juyi was among the top of the poets in the Tang dynasty, and in fact of all time. There is an interesting story about his name. We know Ju means to live, to take up residence, and Yi is easy. When Bai Juyi was still young, he went to the capital Chang'an to look for a job and visited a high official for advice. The official saw his name and made a joke on his name. He said, Chang'an is a capital and the living standard is pretty high, so it might not be that easy, to live, Ju here. But then he saw a poem written by Bai Juyi. Apparently, the poem was so good, he couldn't help clawing back on his words and said, but now that I've seen your excellent poem, it appears it could indeed be very easy for you to live here. The poem that the official saw is the one that you see on the screen today. It is a 五言律诗, i.e., 8 lines and 5 characters per line. But for whatever reason, through history, some people only picked the first 4 lines and presented it as a 绝句. And some even changed the title to a single character, 草, suggesting it is a poem about wild grass, which actually is not what the poem is about. Let's first look at the title. It's 赋得古原草送别. Fu is a literature style, and here 赋得 simply means that this poem was written as an assignment from a given title. For example, it could be that Bai Juyi was sitting for an exam, and in the exam, he was asked to write a poem with the title 古原草送别. Anyway, 古 means ancient, 原 means field, and 草 is grass. 送别 means to bid farewell to people. So the assignment was to write about a farewell scene in an ancient grassland. The key here is farewell, 送别. 赋得古原草送别, 唐白居易. 离离原上草，一岁一枯荣。野火烧不尽，春风吹又生。远芳侵古道，晴翠接荒城。又送王孙去，萋萋满别情。Li Li means the grass being exuberant and flourishing. We know yuan is field. So the first line means the grass on the field is flourishing. 岁 is year. When we say how old we are, we say 我40岁了,我60岁了, which is I am 40 years or 60 years old. 枯 is to wither. 荣 is to prosper. So 一岁一枯荣 means every year the grass will undergo withering once and prospering once. The poet was saying every year this grass would die out and then be back live again. The next two lines are the best in the poem and among the most famous lines of all time in Chinese poetry. Similar to some other well-known lines such as 举头望明月,低头思故乡 or 欲穷千里目,更上一层楼. These 10 characters have become a language and cultural symbol of the Chinese. 野火烧不尽,春风吹又生. 野火烧不尽 is a natural continuation of the previous lines. The poet just said, every year the grass will come and go, and he wanted to elaborate on this. 野 is wild, 火 is fire, 烧 is to burn, 不 is not, and 尽 is to finish, to end. We've seen this 尽 for a few times now in 白日依山尽 and 孤帆远影碧空尽. So this line means the wildfire is not able to completely kill off the grass. No matter how big the fire is and how thoroughly it burns into the roots of the grass, it won't stop the grass from growing back. Next year, when the spring comes, when the spring wind blows, 春风 is spring wind, and the 吹 is to blow. 又 means again, 生 means to grow. So next year, when the spring breeze blows again, the grass will again grow back. This is an extremely romantic and beautiful way of seeing things as they are. Bai Juyi, through his imagination, distilled some clever and rich message from a very plain theme. It shows the resilience of the grass and offers optimism and hope. Interestingly, we know that this poem is about farewell, and the reference to grass was simply a metaphor to the main theme. But because of the way Bai Juyi wrote about the grass, this pair of lines could easily be interpreted as a symbol for resilience and hope. And because this is such an elegant and beautiful idea, people easily fall in love with it. This is probably why some people just picked the first 4 lines and thought even the half poem looked complete, with a strong message and could pass on its own as an excellent 绝句. Now let's look at the second half of the poem. Arguably, the second half is not as good or as impressive as the first half, because it somehow keeps the message repetitive. We will see how this is the case. And maybe this is part of the reason why some people chose to leave out the second half so they can keep the essence of this poem based on their own interpretation. 远 is far away. 芳 means flower or grass or the pleasant scent coming from it. 侵 means to invade or to edge into, to grow into. 古 is ancient, and the 道 is road. So this line is still talking about the grass. It has grown far into the distance and has grown onto the ancient road. And the next line, again, pretty much talks about the same thing. 晴 is sunny and fine day. 翠 is green. 接 means to connect. 荒 means deserted. And 城 is city. So it's saying, on a sunny day, the green color is all the way connected to the deserted cities. Still talking about the vastness and exuberance of the grass. And only in the last 2 lines did the poet finally come back to the theme. 又 means again. Song means to say goodbye. Wang Sun literally means king and grandson, but together this word refers to personnel from high standings in the society. And in this poem, is supposed to be the people that are on their way to leave in a farewell scene. 去 means to leave. So this line is saying, now again the time has come when we have to say goodbye to these people who are going away. And the last line shows the strong bond between the people who are leaving and who are staying. 萋萋 is similar to 离离 in the first line, meaning grass thriving. 满 is full of. 别 is to say goodbye. 情 is feeling and sentiment. This line is saying that when it's time to say goodbye, the thriving grass is everywhere, and even the grass looks full of sad feelings of parting. In this way, the title and what is supposed to be in the theme is truly reflected. It's just unfortunate that this theme was overshadowed by the third and fourth line of the poem. So for thousands of years, most of us only remember 野火烧不尽，春风吹又生. Only remember the quality of strength, resilience, the insignificant grass shows us, and hope that persists for a better future. I think because of this, it doesn't really matter how people interpret this poem. Whatever is Bai Juyi's true intention when he wrote this, the wisdom and beauty embedded in this 野火烧不尽，春风吹又生 should be viewed as invaluable treasure of the whole humanity that we should all be very proud of. That's all. Thank you.